Hi everyone, I'm Cam. I'm owner of Stairlifts Cape Cod here on Cape Cod. And if you own a Brooks or an Acorn stairlift, one that looks something like this, then you're going to want to watch this video because I'm going to tell you exactly how to take this apart. If you ever need to service your machine, one of the nice things about an Acorn or a Brooks lift is they're pretty simple to work on. And they're pretty dependable. But like any electromechanical device, they're going to need service every now and then. So right now I'm going to show you how to take that seat off and how to take the cabinet apart. From there you can do anything you want. First things first is you're going to need at least these three items. You're going to need a long number 2 Phillips head screwdriver, a straight bladed screwdriver, and if you can, get your hands on a voltmeter. They're pretty inexpensive, they're pretty simple to use, but it'll tell you a lot that's going on with your machine if you have a problem. First thing we're going to do is take the seat off. So what you're going to do is flip everything up, and this right here is a seat post plug. We're going to pry that off. Now with that pried off, we can rotate the seat around. Actually, we could have done it with it on, but we're going to rotate the seat, and if you look underneath the seat here, you're going to see the connection from the seat to the body of the machine. Right here are 2 knurled pieces of plastic, so we're going to grab those and we're going to unscrew them from each other, just like that. Alright, so those are unscrewed, and then we're going to pull the cable apart. That's simple. Next, we're going to rotate the seat back. We're going to push down on the paddle on the side here. I'll put you up one more level here so you can see better. We're going to push down the paddle on the side, and as we do that, we're going to lift the chair up, straight up. All right, now we got the seat away from the machine. This is a trim ring. We just take this off. And if you'll notice underneath this trim ring, this ring right here is what gives us our E6 or E5 code when we've got the seat rotated. So you want to make sure that this seat switch right here sits in that indent. Now this right here is a right-handed machine. All stairlifts are from the bottom looking up. So this one mounts on the right-hand side of the stairs. If it mounted on the left-hand side of the stairs, it would be a left-handed machine, in which case everything I'm showing you right now would be mirror image of what you would do. Okay? So we've got the chair off. Next thing we're going to do is take the saddle off. There's 4 screws that hold the saddle on, and there's holes in this plate right here so that you can reach those screws. So we're just going to unscrew those. Great. Now that we've got the screws undone, we're just going to lift those off. And then we're going to take the saddle off. It's just a trim ring. You kind of have to spread it a little bit and twist it, and you can take it right off the side of the post here. Then we're going to take the gaiter off, or this boot right here. It might have a nylon zip tie on the top. You can just push that up a little bit and it'll slide right off of it. And then as you see, it velcros together here on the side. We'll just take that off. Next, there are 2 screws that hold the case to the carriage. So we're going to remove these 2 screws. Next, there's a half moon that sits above the footrest here. It has a screw in the center. We're going to loosen that. And then just take the whole thing right off. There's the screw right there. I usually leave it right inside the half moon, because when I go to put it back together, it's just easier to put the screwdriver in and do it that way. All right, we basically got the machine ready to come apart. So what we're going to do is, this is the shroud right here, okay? So we're going to kind of push this off to the side underneath this front plate here, and it'll pop out. And then we're going to lift it straight up. Now if you look on the back side of this machine, you're going to see a couple of screws down there. There's one there, and there should be, yep, and the other one is right there. They're just guide screws. They should be loose and they should stay loose, because when you put the machine back together, this case is going to slide right underneath those screws. So once we've got this side of the case out, we can kind of just pick it straight up, kind of work it as you go. You might have to slide this flap out. Voila! You got it apart. Now from here we can do anything. We can replace the batteries. As you see, these are the batteries right here. They're strapped in because this ships from the UK, so they want to make sure the batteries don't fall out, so they put a nylon strap around. You just cut that strap. You don't need to replace it. And then just loosen these two screws here, take off the nut, and then you can take off the terminal leads and pop the batteries out and replace those. But for the sake of this video, I want to show you how to replace the fuses. If ever this window right here is dark and the machine is on and you've cycled it a couple of times and you don't get a beep or anything else, then you probably have blown the fuse. Now there's two fuses to this machine. There's one right here in its fuse holder that goes to the batteries, and there's one back here on the lower side of the circuit board. It's right there. It's that yellow fuse that says 20 amp on it. So we're going to check the cylinder fuse first, since it's so easy to do. But first I'm going to cut this nylon zip tie that holds the batteries on. That way I can get to that a little easier. Alright, one thing of note here is that you'll notice that I've moved the machine up to about the second stair. And I've done that because, first of all, it's running. Yours might not be. But if it's running and you're able to move the machine, if you have it up from the very bottom, it's just a little easier to work on. So first thing I'm going to do is cut that nylon strap that holds our batteries in place right here, okay? Take that off. Now you can see here's our positive. Since the batteries are linked in series, we have this battery strap right here. It takes from positive to negative, and then of course you've got the negative to the motor, and the positive goes right to the switch right here on the side. First thing I'm going to do is pull that positive off. Now the machine is totally dead, so I don't have to worry about, if it wasn't working before, at least I don't have to worry about it accidentally working now, because there's no way the machine can get power, and there's no way that I can damage any of the electrical connections. So as you see on that positive strap right there, there is that fuse connector. So I'm going to take that apart. Hopefully you can see this. Alright, so the battery holder, or the fuse holder, is apart, and there's our cylindrical fuse right there. We want to check that, make sure it's not broken or anything, or burned out, okay, because that carries the power to the machine. So if this were burned out, the machine's going to be dead. This is one reason it could be dead. But this one we know is in good shape. But just to be sure, so in order to check the fuse, the best thing they have is a voltmeter. Very inexpensive. You can get them for $10, $20, and they'll tell you everything you need to know about any electrical device. So right here is the fuse. Now we're going to turn this voltmeter till it registers ohmegas, which is right down here. So ohmegas are ohms. Ohms are resistance. So we're going to put it on ohms. And as you'll see on the meter right now, it reads 1. That means high resistance. There's a charge flowing out of this wire here, trying to make it back to this wire here, but since there's a lot of resistance, it's registering 1 or a lot of resistance. Now if I were to hold these two leads together, just like that, with the two ends touching each other, you'll notice that now it reads 0 in the readout. That means there's no resistance. That charge that's running through the wire is running all the way back to the meter, so there's no resistance. That's how we check our fuses. All right. So we're going to take our fuse. We're going to lay a lead on either end of that fuse. And then we're going to read our meter. We're going to see that it reads 0 resistance. So that means that that fuse is good. It's allowing electricity to flow through it. So that's not our problem. So we're going to put that fuse back in the fuse holder. Then we're going to screw it back together again with the other end of that fuse holder until we just have that lead there. And now we can put that right back on the battery if we wanted to. But I'm going to leave it off right now because I want to check the other fuse, and that's the one that's down here. Okay? It's just below this square piece that's on the circuit board, but it's that fuse right there. That's the one we want to check. The best way to do that is to get a pair of needle nose pliers. And we're going to put them right on the end of that fuse, carefully. We're going to kind of wiggle it back and forth and pull it straight up and out of there. All right, now we got that fuse out. As you can see, it's a blade fuse, but it's most importantly a mini blade fuse. So if you went to the hardware store and bought a blade fuse, 50% chance you'd probably get the wrong size. They make a mini and they make a large. You want to make sure you get the mini blade fuse, and this one is a 20 amp fuse. So we're going to check this one right now. So if you can see this, I've got a lead on either side of that blade fuse, and I'm looking in my voltmeter, but if you look at the voltmeter, it reads 0. Okay, so that means we have 0 resistance. That means the fuse is good. Now, most often, if you ran into something on the stairs with your stair lift and you didn't stop the machine right away, say a roll of duct tape or something like that, or maybe you hit a door that was open. Some people have doors that swing into close to the bottom of the track. Anyway, the machine is so powerful that it could damage the machine, so these fuses are put in there to prevent that. So that's why you want to check these fuses. If you ever have a black window here and the machine is on and you've cycled that on-off switch a couple of times, then you know you've probably blown a fuse, in which case it's one of those two. Now to put this little mini blade fuse back, it's just the opposite. It doesn't matter which way it goes, this way or 180 around. You just want to make sure that the blades go in and they go into the socket in that circuit board. So I'm going to grab it again with my needle nose pliers and hold it just like that. And then I'm going to feed it right back down into that socket. This can be kind of tedious, so if you've got some good light, that's all the better. Alright, the fuse is back down in there. I've pushed it down with the end of the 20 amp fuse. And I'm going to grab it again with my needle nose pliers and hold it just like that. And then I'm going to feed it right back down into that socket. This can be kind of tedious, so if you've got some good light, that's all the better. Alright, the fuse is back down in there. I've pushed it down with the end of the needle nose to make sure it's seated. Now I can check everything I just did by turning the machine on. So I'm going to put the positive lead back on the battery here. Alright, so all the leads are on there tight. I also check these Molex connectors too, across the board, make sure they're on there tight and straight. If one gets cockeyed on here, say off to the side like that, it can give you an error code. So you want to make sure that those are seated and they're all straight. We're going to turn it on. Not only getting the chirp, but we're getting A1, which means it's ready to go. Now, if you wanted to check it, you could do it now. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have the seat on. Just use the remote. All right, it's working. So we're going to bring it back down to a comfortable level to work on, which for me is right about there. Put the remote back. We're going to shut the machine back off. And now we're going to reassemble it. So to reassemble it, it is just the opposite of the way we took it apart, okay? We're going to put the shroud on. We're going to make sure that we index those 2 screws on the back side of the case. If you're doing a left-handed lift, it would be the back screws over here on the left-hand side of the case. But we're going to slide the shroud on and make sure that those 2 screws go in, okay? Make sure your seat wire is out of the way. You're going to slide the case on, and you can let these 2 flaps go by the front plate for now. What we want to do is just make sure that we're getting it seated down underneath this plate right here. So that part of the case is going to slide down there. Now this next part's a little tricky, but you can do it. We're going to pull back a little bit, and we're going to push this back side of the case underneath this flap. We're still leaving this side of the flap out, but you'll notice that down here the flap has gone by the footrest. It's underneath it, and that's what we want. Now we're going to index those 2 screws on the back side. So we're going to slide the case back a little. Going to feel for those 2 screws in the slot. And they're going to index just like that, okay? Once that's done, we can put this part of the case underneath this part of the flap. And the easiest way to do that is with a screwdriver. Just put it underneath here and kind of pry up and twist this part of the case a little bit, and it'll pop right under. Now you're good to go. Now the next best thing to do is to put these lower case screws in first. Remember, those are machine screws. They're the small stubby ones with the flat heads on them. We're going to put one in right here. And we're kind of move the case around a little until we feel it go drop into the hole, and then we can tighten it down. Of course, that wasn't it. And there it is. And that's not it either. It's right. You can kind of move the case around and feel for it. There we go. Alright, so that one's tightened down. Next thing we're going to do is put in that other stubby screw. The best thing to do is move the footrest up out of the way to do it. I'm going to slide that in there and kind of feel for the hole. It's a machine screw, so it's got to meet up with its threads. Once you get it in, you can just tighten that down. Alright, so we got those 2 tight. Next I put on the half moon. And the best way to do this, I find, is to pull this wire out a little bit with your finger. And then we're going to index that wire into this slot right here. You'll notice there's several slots in the bottom of this half moon. We're going to use the one to the far right. We're going to slide the wire right into it. And then we're going to drop the half moon down so that these edges right here go over that part of the footrest, okay? The idea here is we don't want to pinch this wire. All right, so we don't want it to go in like that. We want it to go in like that. And then we're going to take one more stubby screw. Got one more machine screw. Put that on the end of our screwdriver. Put it in the hole. And tighten it down. Okay, so this half moon sits pretty flat, just like that. It might stick out a little on one side, but it's usually fairly flat, and that's what we want. Alright, so we've done all the hard stuff. Now we're just putting the trim together. We're going to put the boot on, spread it apart, put it around so that that cable comes out through the indent right here. And it's Velcro, so we're just going to pinch it together there and slide the tail of it underneath this part of the flap, just like that. Next, we're going to take the saddle. It'll be dead, boy, little Luke. Come on, little Luke. Sorry, I had to get that reference in. We're going to spread it like this a little bit so that we can put it around the post. So put it around the post and around that boot, and we slide it down, kind of work it down so that the boot works through it. And then we're going to line up the holes on the case with these 4 holes. Now we're just going to put the screws back in. Alright, we're just about done now, but we've got to still put the seat back on. Makes it a little more comfortable to ride, don't you think? And when we do that, we want to make sure of a couple of things. So first of all, we're going to look down again. There's that switch I was telling you about that sits in that indent. So you want to make sure that that switch is sitting in the indent and that this slot that's on this black plastic ring is in line with the stairs. If you're doing a right-handed lift, it would be to the back side. If you're doing a left-handed lift, it would be to the other side up here. But either way, we want to see that indent in here. Now we're going to take the trim ring, and you'll notice that the trim ring has a slot. It's got 2 holes, or maybe there's only 1 hole. You won't get one on either side, but usually there are nowadays. But there's always this long slot in the back. So you want to make sure that that long slot goes to the back side of the lift and that it lines up with the cutout in the metal plate. There's a cutout in the metal plate to the back side, 12 o'clock. Want to make sure that that slot, plastic slot, lines up with it at 12 o'clock. All right, so next we're going to take the chair, pick it up like this, and I always use my thumb on the lower side to hold down the paddle. So we're going to hold this paddle down with our thumb, and we're going to position the chair right over the seat post in line with the rail, and we're going to drop it straight down. And with any luck, everything will just match right up and drop right in, just like that. All right. You'll notice that it was off a little bit to the side like this. I find that that works best. Sometimes when I try to drop the seat down with this perfectly in line with the rail, it doesn't always drop down. But if I have it just a little bit to the side like that, then I'm able to pick it on and off real easy. Just like that. All right. So we want to make sure that we're back. We also want to check our readout, make sure that it's reading C and a number so we know that it's charging. We don't want to see the E in there. If the seat is like this, if the seat is in line with the rail, it should be reading a charge code. If it's off and we're reading an error code, we might not have that black plastic ring lined up correctly. So anyway, right now we do. Everything is just the way it should read. The next thing we're going to do is rotate the seat. And we're going to put these two connectors back together again, okay? So we're going to slide them together. They'll only go in one way, so just kind of rotate it until you find where they want to go together. Push them together, and then with those two knurled pieces of plastic, we're going to tighten them just like that. And we're going to let the chair swing back around. The last thing is to cover up that seat post. So we're going to put the seat post plug on. We're just going to push it down with the palm of our hand, just like that. All right, last but not least, we want to check the switches at the ends of the arm to make sure they're active. So if we fold both arms down and we push it, we should hear a beep. We should hear a beep, okay? And if we hold it for those 3 seconds, it's going to go up. And then we want to bring it back down, make sure it works. We hold the switch for those 3 seconds, and then it comes back down. And remember to keep holding the switch. If you let go, it's just going to stop, and then you got to do it all over again. That's it. You did it. Congratulations. Not that tough, is it? It might be a little dicey the first time or two, but after you take these apart, like I have 2,500 times, I can literally do this thing in my sleep. And you'll find out all the problems once you get that shroud off. Just check it along the way to make sure that you're getting a readout letter and number. Usually when I put the case back on and tighten those screws down, before I put the chair on, I turn on the machine to make sure I'm getting a readout. If I turn it on and that screen is black again, I may have knocked off a wire when I was putting the case back together. So it's always good to check as you go. Anyway, congratulations. Check out my other videos that I'll be uploading soon for how to change out the batteries. There are a couple of gimmicks there, or a few things you should know. That it's not quite as straightforward as you think. And anyway, thanks for watching.